Well, good morning. We'll call this morning's meeting to order. Great to be back again. Thanks for taking over for me there for a couple of weeks. And the first thing on the agenda today is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the presented agenda.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next thing, we got is citizens to be heard. Is anybody that wants to talk about something that's not on the agenda, other than Levon? Okay. Anybody on the computer or called in?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We'll move on to approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, the motion is second to approve the bills and vouchers. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes for February 7th.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Ebinger, a second by Commissioner Campbell for the approval of the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we got the annual department update by law enforcement. Sheriff Empteen, and bring your crew up here.
The whole crew.
For the posse.
Yeah, we need more chairs, I think.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Thanks for having us this morning. Also, welcome back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
It's good to see you back here, even though I think somebody might not approve with it back there. We have our annual update here for what's taken place essentially in 2022. And I'll present first as far as the law enforcement side, and then we'll hear from Gabe and then our jail administrator. First and foremost, what we did in 2022, since 2022 was the 150th anniversary for Clay County, we decided to do kind of a retro-looking squad car to recognize and honor that. And that is the car you see there. It's only one of them out there right now. We seem to be getting a lot of compliments, and people seem to like that look. On the back quarter panel there, it does say Clay County established 1872, just to kind of honor the 150th celebration of Clay County. I'm going to do a quick division overview. We do have just a quick change in some of our divisions here. So we do have the administrative division, which consists of myself, the chief deputy, and we obviously welcome Chief Deputy Chris Martin, and we have the short timer right back here. He's got a month left, and he likes to tell everybody that.
He is grinning.
He is grinning, yes. That grin's been there for a while, too. So, and then also in that division, we have our office manager that does all of our records, and that's Heather Croney. We also have 5 office associates, and that includes our jail office associate as well. In 2022, we combined a couple divisions, and I'll get to why we did that here in a later slide, but patrol and investigations were combined to create the operations division, and the division commander is Lieutenant Josh Roeder. We have 9 patrol deputies, 4 patrol sergeants, 2 school resource deputies. We have 1 for the DGF school, the 2 sites, and then we have 1 for Ewell and Hitterdall schools. Also in that division, we have 4 investigators. We have an investigative sergeant, and then we do have an investigative roster deputy, and he essentially works cold cases. That is retired BC agent Dan Bauman. He's now working for us, and he's been following up on the 1978 Billy Wolf homicide, the 1995 Renee Nelson homicide. He's also working with the City of Moorhead Police Department on the Tommy Bierson case and the Henry Volochenko case as well. So it's been good to have him doing that and getting some fresh eyes that can focus full-time on those old cases. And I feel that he's making some progress on some, so it's good to have him there. We have our support services division. That's Lieutenant Chad Hagan is the division commander. Within that division, we have 3 transport deputies, 2 civil process deputies, and they serve all of our HROs, order for protections, writs, things of that nature. 3 court security deputies, 1 sergeant, and that's Sergeant Nicole Reno, and then we have 6 roster deputies that essentially work just down in court security. And then we also have them working and helping us during roll-log during the steam thrusters reunion as well. Then we have the Emergency Management Division that consists of Lieutenant Tweeten. Lieutenant Tweeten also has an assistant emergency manager, and that is Nicole Reno. Both of them do a great job in their positions as well. And Lieutenant Tweeten will be presenting here shortly within this PowerPoint. Corrections, and we will hear from our jail administrator, Carrie Tooten here, but Carrie is the division commander there. She's new in the position. She's doing a great job, and we're glad to have her there. And she also has Assistant Jail Administrator Katie Johnson. She has Administrative Sergeant Cody Benson. We have 4 shift sergeants, and we have 45 full-time correctional officers. We're in the process of doing the corporal positions as well to assist with supervision within the jail facilities. And she can go into that a little bit more, but we want to move away from the lead worker and actually have a designated corporal. So when we don't have a sergeant there, we do have a supervisor there. Then we have 9 roster correctional officers, which very much so help fill the gap when we have people that are taking vacations and things of that nature as well. And like I said, Carrie will be presenting shortly. Good presentation. So just a quick review here for the operations division. We ended the year with incident 23,830. It was a 9% increase from 2021. Some of that is the increase is there's more self-initiated activity, and then whenever we get a major weather event, our call loads increase significantly. And during Gabe's presentation, you'll see that 2021, 2022, we had a few significant weather events which would have created that increase. We have K9 Maverick. He's the newest member of our K9 team. He hit the streets with his handler, Deputy Mike Files. They completed their Top Gun partnership that that K9 Goose had been missing. The 2 K9 teams, and I expect these numbers to climb for 2023, considering that we'll have them both full-time here now. Mike didn't hit the road until June, and then Sam was gone for a while with deployment, but they had 4 criminal apprehensions, 11 non-physical criminal apprehensions, 5 area searches, 4 building searches, 6 vehicle searches, and then 6 public demonstrations. They'd also located 33 grams of M30 pills. And as I alluded to earlier, patrol and investigations turned into the operations division, so we have 1 lieutenant to oversee those 2 divisions rather than putting an investigative lieutenant into that role. It's now a sergeant position. It's a working sergeant, so he's handling a caseload, things of that nature. This did free up a deputy position, so I'm able to add a deputy to our patrol division, to where I'm hoping to add that to day shift patrol, where we're seeing a little bit of shortage there on some of our shifts. So hopefully that'll fill the gap with existing staff that we do have, so we didn't have to add anybody else at this point. We have been trying to hire for that position since the end of June. We're not having any luck. Applications are just not there. How many post-board openings do we have right now?
There was just under 150 openings, which would be significant for, like 20 years ago, we would go on the post-board site and there'd be 4 or 5 openings for departments throughout the state. Now, at 150 openings, and several of them have multiple positions that they're hiring for. Moorhead recently had their opening, and they were hiring for 4 or 5 positions, but it was one of those 150 postings, so there's multiple positions.
There you go.
Multiple positions that are open throughout the state right now.
Yeah, it's not just our area that's seeing this, but it's across the state, statewide. I think it's going to be nationwide as well. So we'll have to think of a way to get that filled, and I'm sure we'll do it. This is K9 Maverick. K9 Maverick joined us in June, and his handler deputy is Mike Files, and then we also have K9 Goose with his handler deputy being Sam Grambois. They are our top dogs in Clay County. Top dogs on the ground, right? Exactly. Operations Division, they also removed the following illegal drugs from our streets. They had 4.5 pounds of methamphetamine, 7.8 pounds of marijuana, 1.23 grams of fentanyl, 511 vape cartridges, 195.3 grams of mushrooms. There's also liquid methamphetamine, some miscellaneous pills, gummies, M30 pills, and cocaine were also taken as evidence in 2022. We had a case where we seized large amounts of M30 pills, with one case bringing over 7,000 pills, and then several more were seized throughout the year as well. There was also federal indictments of several people for weapons charges and narcotics-related charges. Operations Division also assisted the DEA with a large-scale operation of a person distributing large amounts of narcotics in our region. This case is still open, therefore I'm not at liberty to go into a lot of detail with it.
What about the vaping? What's that, the vaping taken away from whom? Is that from juveniles or?
Usually from juveniles, we're taking the vape cartridges.
I mean, because they're selling the stuff, isn't it? I mean,
Well, they're using them in like the school systems and things like that, and then
Okay.
they're also putting illegal substances in the vape cartridges as well.
excuse me. Thank you.
The October drug take-back event yielded 108 pounds of pharmaceuticals to be destroyed. Total pharmaceuticals for the year from our pill drop boxes, which are located in Dilworth PD, Glennon PD, our Uland substation, and Barnesville PD, was 196.9 pounds of pharmaceuticals that were destroyed in 2022. There was a total of 355 cases which were investigated by Clay County investigators throughout the year. We did several jail backgrounds, and our investigators also assisted other agencies on large-scale cases such as homicides and multi-jurisdictional narcotics cases. Thanks to a lot of assistance from folks in this room and others, we were able to get our street crimes unit back together with our North Dakota counterparts. Due to that law change in May, and they have had made several apprehensions since then as well.
I have a question on that. So, Sheriff, back when we decided to be part of that, street crimes unit, we had one county deputy that was assigned to that. Is that still the case?
That's correct. Yep, that's still the case. He's on the street crimes unit, and he's also part of the U.S. Marshals task force as well. Support Services Division, which is Lieutenant Chad Hagan, they continue to deal with some lingering issues related to COVID. In June, the governor memorandum on evictions was lifted. Since then, they've seen a consistent number of evictions being completed. Courts are still trying to get caught up on jury trials, and we're seeing a lot of cases through Zoom. Brian and I spoke on Friday afternoon of ways possibly to help the courts get through some of their backlog, and we'll do a little brainstorm and see what we can do there. The transports, they've stayed busy with both prisoner and mentally ill transports, and as you can see, they transported 714 individuals in 2022. 668 were prisoners, both adult and juvenile, and 46 were commitments. And they traveled just shy of 75,000 miles in 2022. Court security, they assisted with 94 scheduled court trials and 25 scheduled jury trials. They also assisted with escorting the jury in and out of the courtroom and assisted with other needs the courts may have. Our civil division completed 2,061 services in 2022. They were 477 subpoenas, 474 summons, 285 notices, 201 writ of recovery or completed evictions, 171 HROs, 131 OFPs, and 29 order to show cause. Of those services, 1,878 were completed by the 2 civil process deputies. 121 were served by patrol, 41 were served by warrants and transports, 10 by court security, 8 by investigations, 2 by office staff, and the emergency manager even snuck one in there in 2022. So, and our records division, of course, they are the backbone of the department. Everybody knows that. They spent their days entering warrants and civil papers, processing permit to carry and purchase applications, dictating reports, submitting crime stats to the state, and everything in between. As you can see there, our permit to carry applications decreased in 2022 with 312 less than the previous year. And our warrant and civil case entries have continued to rise. And again, in this position, we are still currently one person short. It's our TAC position that we are trying to fill, but we're still not having any luck at this point. We've had a couple job offers out there, and the people have accepted and rescinded, so we will continue to work on filling that position as well. And I will pass the baton over to our emergency manager and have him go for it.
Morning, everybody. I prepared some slides for Mark. I was scheduled to be down in Minneapolis for an HSEM conference, but I got about halfway there yesterday when they decided to cancel it. So I'm here. So in the winter of 2021 and 22, Clay County experienced 8 blizzards and 7 winter storm warnings, which is pretty significant. I believe our northwest region of the state as a whole had 11 blizzards last year. We ducked out of a couple of them, but that was a record for our area. We didn't have the snow totals, but we did have a lot of high wind events. So it was just a busy winter when the sheriff alluded to our calls for service. They definitely go up a lot. Highway 10 and I-94 keep us very busy. On June 20th, there was a large windstorm that went through Clay County. It affected most areas of the county. There was the National Weather Service did classify confirm an EF0 tornado touching down just south of Glendon. So there was fairly extensive damage to the power infrastructure down around the Glendon-Sabin area. And then up by Hitterdal, between Ulen and Hitterdal, there was a lot of damage. Those were kind of our 2 hardest hit areas. That evening, I did request the volunteer fire departments throughout Clay County to be dispatched out just to help us with damage assessments, because we just really didn't know at that time the extent of the damages throughout the county. So they were able to go around, check their own communities, and kind of report back to us and just let us know where maybe we needed resources or where I needed to go to help do damage assessments. So that was kind of our thankfully our only really major summer weather event. We've been fortunate here in Clay County to not have anything real major in the last couple of years summer-wise. And then just kind of one of the main objectives of emergency management is for me to make sure that our first responders, elected officials, community stakeholders, and citizens are prepared as possible when disasters do strike. And I accomplish that through planning, outreach, training, and exercises. And just to kind of highlight some of the 2022 trainings and exercises that happened throughout Clay County is last spring I did host a Skywarn Storm Spotters class at the Law Enforcement Center, and that was attended by different members of the Moorhead Police Department, Moorhead Police Volunteers, Clay County Sheriff's Office, and just some other citizens, members of our CERT team that take an interest in that. And how that works is once they've received that training, they're qualified or certified by the National Weather Service to actually call in and confirm whether tornadoes or different types of formations to the Weather Service, and it does help them out a lot. So they do appreciate that, and if any of you are ever interested in attending one of those, they're rather interesting. I co-hosted a train derailment hazardous chemical spill exercise at the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Rail Yard in Dilworth, and this was kind of a follow-up to one we had done a couple years prior. We expanded on that exercise a little bit, and that was attended by all of the volunteer fire departments throughout Clay County, the Moorhead Fire Department, our regional hazmat team, which operates through Moorhead Fire, Sheriff's Office, and myself. We also had our partners from Salvation Army were there. So really good exercise. And then most of you attended the HSEM elected officials training. I had the second module of that Director Joe Kelly presented at the Law Enforcement Center. HSEM still hasn't appointed a replacement for Director Kelly, who retired in February. So once his replacement is named, I'll work on getting the third module scheduled for us. I think that was well received by those who attended. And then something I'm kind of rather proud of, and we're building off of this, in last fall, our region, so my region for HSEM is the northwest region of the state, and that includes a total of 14 entities, which would be 12 counties and then 2 tribal nations. And we hosted a Family Assistance Center seminar. And for those of you that don't know what in the world of emergency management and law enforcement, a Family Assistance Center is something that you would stand up after a mass casualty event, such as like a plane crash or an active assailant threat. And I guess the role of a Family Assistance Center is to help I guess, bring victims' families in, a place where they would maybe, learn about the event, provide different mental health support. There would be a portion of like the coroner's office would be there to help answer questions on identification, returning property to them, things like that. It's one of those things that we don't spend a lot of time on, but we know there's definitely a great need of it should we ever have something like that happen. So we had the seminar was very well attended. It was actually kind of a bad weather day, and we still had close to 70 attendees. This March now, we are building into a surge exercise, which is kind of a virtual tabletop exercise. And then next fall, we are going to be doing more of a practical exercise in Monoman. So it's a really good, well-attended event that just one of those things that we know we need to work on. It's just hard to get everyone there. And it does involve our partners from social services, public health, law enforcement, emergency management, schools. So it's a lot of coordination to bring all those groups together and kind of formulate a plan on how we would deal with that. And then I worked with Sanford Ambulance and Clay County Public Health to develop a series of tabletop exercises, kind of evacuation-based exercises due to like a weather event that we've been going around and working with the long-term care facilities, so the nursing homes throughout Clay County, just to work through that with them and kind of help them prepare a little bit better in the event they need to evacuate their staffs. So that's just some of the highlights as far as the training. And then planning and outreach. I worked with the National Weather Service to obtain a storm-ready certification for Clay County, and they just have a list of criteria that the county needs to meet to reach that certification. And then I participated in the summer and winter weather awareness weeks. Some of that was done through social media, educating the public on just preparation. I utilized the county website for that, and then I did do a couple of radio interviews on that. I also sit on 2 state-level advisory committees. One, our emergency management group is redoing the best practices document for emergency siren usage throughout the state. And then the other being standardizing a damage assessment tool for the state. So after a disaster event, how we, I guess, categorize the damages. FEMA is pushing for a more standard version of that. So just to, I guess, make it a little easier for applicants to understand and get the right information to FEMA so on the back end of it, there's a lot less headache for them to get reimbursement. So I've been working pretty hard with the state on that, and then continue work on updating the Clay County Emergency Operations Plan. This year, 2022, was peer review, so I met with a group of other emergency managers from our region, and then a state representative, and went over Clay County's plan, which the state certified. So, any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Good
I have
report.
a few more slides left, but I'll turn the baton over to Carrie before I wrap it up.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Carrie.
I'm going to go over a few of the highlights for 2022 for the correctional facility. Our staffing went from a high of 15 down this year to only needing 1 more full-time officer. I believe that we've helped that process by creating new promotional videos, brochures, job fair materials were created. All this was done with the help of our IT department and our GIS specialist, Mandy. We also attended, Katie and I, a few job fairs. We spoke at the local college classes. Our job postings are now on the websites of the criminal justice college divisions. And we met with the VA job service division also. Along with the help of HR, a referral program was offered. Also, in the last year, we have had 5 previously resigned employees come back to work for us. We've conducted over 80 interviews this year, handed out roughly 70 backgrounds, and trained in 28 employees. We've created a new training program, a new training academy is what we're calling it, with the Clay County Corrections. It's a 4-week program consisting of 2 weeks more off-the-floor training, just to create a more well-rounded CO before they're off on their own. Current staff and facility improvements, just small upgrades to our uniforms and boots, just give that staff a feeling of, ownership and so forth. The staff also have all their own equipment now. We've implemented a new positive memo system. We've implemented a employee of the month situation where it's based on staff voting. We've bought new gym equipment for our staff using our correctional fund. And recently, as far as the facility goes, we recently had Jason Hively come in. I don't know if he's the main attorney for.
Yep, he's one of the main attorneys for MCIT.
Yeah, and he came in to do a jail tour. These jail tours are set up through the state of Minnesota. And what these tours do is they help kind of shore up the jails and where they could possibly be liable for any potential litigation. In his eyes, we're doing very well. We also recently changed, I shouldn't say recently, it's been about 6 months now, that we changed from MEN to ACH. That has been a big influence for our staff. It offers much more of a streamlined on-call service for after hours. We have quarterly meetings to analyze operations with our medical. Training is just much more advanced and educational, and our electronic medical records are just much more streamlined as well. And with ACH, we've saved over 50% a month on prescription costs. All right, highlights for those that are incarcerated, our programming. Full programming started back up in May of '22. Our programmers, our work detail officers were back at their positions in April of 2022. STS started back up in April, May also of 2022. Just also a quick teaser for this year, we are working in conjunction with Moorhead Adult Basic Education to bring in an online GED program, which I'll be back to talk to you guys about. We introduced a new music keyboard class that was added, which is taught by our volunteer music teachers. Art class was added and taught also by a retired art teacher. We have a trauma-based yoga program led by one of our programmers. Another new program that we do is called Bridging the Gap, and it sets the inmates up with sponsorship before they get released to help ease that transition back into the community. We've included a Ramadan prayer sessions that were implemented this year and will continue if requested. We created mini libraries for the mental health units for those that can't be in population with everybody else. We also added extra programming through Hip Hop and Hope and the Hearts of Clay. Hip Hop and Hope was started by Michael Bloom. He's an ex-Fargo police officer, kind of found his calling in a nonprofit agency. That started in July. He started coming in with Ryan Lewis. And it started with just kind of a coffee sit down. They'd bring in donuts and Starbucks and so forth for the inmates and just kind of started talking about how they can better their lives and stuff like that. And then it moved on to where they brought barbers from Skill Cuts in just to give haircuts and so forth, just to make the inmates feel a little bit better about themselves and so forth. The big thing that we did, though, was on Christmas. During Christmas time, we had a very big Christmas dinner. This was done in conjunction, too, with the Hearts of Clay. But Hip Hop and Hope brought in brisket, pulled pork, and so forth for the inmates, and they also provided crafts for them to make Christmas cards for their families. It's a difficult time for inmates in the facility, and a time where the mental health really kind of shoots down, so it's important that we do things like that for them during that time. Okay, as far as our river project goes, most of you know what that is, but I'll still just kind of do a quick summary. The river project is a collaboration between Clay County Correctional Facility and the Lakeland Mental Health Center and provides mental health outreach and treatment to incarcerated individuals. The services are provided by a master's level mental health professional. His name is Craig Weichert. and a bachelor's level mental health practitioner, which is Joe Overmo. He used to be a correctional officer, so he kind of offers a great aspect from both sides of the spectrum there. So just to give you some numbers on that program, 434 individual clients were served, 599 individual inmates participated in programming that's provided through our River Project. An additional 486 professional face-to-face visits and 711 resource and referral requests were handled. Something that we're looking at doing for 2023 is tracking information on criteria for people that would meet the SPMI, which is severe persistent mental illness. This is something that Craig's going to start following up with a little bit more. Just in January alone, he had 12 clients that he would diagnose as severe and persistent mental illness. 33% of those appear to be schizophrenic or have some sort of psychotic disorder. All right, then that would lead us into this little device here. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is our kind of tablet that the inmates get. Okay, on this tablet, this year we've added the law library, which it used to be just one desktop in a room down on the south end of our jail, and we'd have to try and organize all the times for inmates to be able to get in there. Now they have it 24/7 on that device. I'm not sure their attorneys like it, but it keeps them busy.
Does each one have one of those? Or?
Yep, they all get one unless they've had past behaviors where they've broken one in the past. But yes, they all have one of these.
Okay.
So they make their phone calls, their kind of face-to-face visits, everything's through here. So if they want to request something from mental health, a mental health visit, medical visit, it's all done through here. It's basically an email setup. It's pretty easy for them to follow.
Do we follow up on that, or would you monitor that, or?
24/7, yep, all the time. So what it does is sends an alert to our emails that we're getting something in.
Thank you.
And so that's constantly being checked. The other things that's been added on here, I just mentioned the law library, but we added over 50 audiobooks for those who struggle with reading and writing. And there's hundreds of self-help books on here, from mental health to healthy lifestyles, physical health, staying healthy in the jails, and self-help for basic education training. So they are never without some form of programming, even if they're locked down by themselves.
What's the usage of that thing by inmates?
Like a battery-wise?
No, by prisoners, how often do they use it?
This is basically attached to them. If it's not charging, it's kind of like kids with their cell phones, or adults as well. Adults too, yeah. It's attached to them at all times.
I think he's wondering 24 hours a day if it's.
Yep, they do get it 24 hours a day. They will just ask a CO to charge it for them, so we'll put it on the charger for them, and then when they're out, they'll unhook it and put their headphones in and listen. So it also has like white noise. I know it sounds kind of funny, but that's a big thing that they use when they go to sleep, is there's a white noise type app on there.
Mr. Chair. So that's a neat deal, I think.
Yeah.
Is there a time limit for outside communication with these people, or can they call them at any time on that?
They can call them at any time. The reason we do that is because sometimes people at 2:30 in the morning are high anxiety and they need to communicate with their family sometimes. So it's on 24/7. Now, if it gets to the point where they're too loud for their cellmate or anything like that, then we'll kind of give them warnings with that.
Well, I also think that's good.
Yeah.
How about when somebody comes to your facility to visit, how does that work?
So generally, that doesn't happen a lot anymore because they can do everything from either their iPad at home rather than having to.
Because even if they were to go on site, they're still doing a video.
The inmates will still only be on this. Yep. And the visitor, then if they don't have a device at home, they can still come to the jail, and we have a kiosk, kind of like a tablet like this, for them to use.
And back, at one time, they could only have so many visits too, wasn't there?
Right,
That's all
it's-
changed now?
Yep, they can only have 2 visits where their visitors are coming into the jail. Otherwise, they can do as many, what do you call them?
Yeah, well, I guess,
Video visitations they want, they just have to pay for it, yeah.
well, this is new to me, but I think it's really good.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's
I thought you said right away
extremely
white
handy.
noise or wife noise, and
Yeah,
that was sort of disturbed me a little bit.
Careful.
Right, good. Good eyes, buddy.
let me clarify that.
Frank, you're about the only one who could get away with saying that.
Didn't want to disturb our prisoners that much.
What would those noises be?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anything else?
Nope, I'm
Awesome.
good.
Sheriff, can I touch on just a couple things that Carrie said? And she said them kind of quickly, but they're,
Well, I was
they're
trying to-
they're very important things that she mentioned. Last year, we were down 15 staff. We had 15 openings at one time for the jail. She has that number down to 1 current opening. How does that happen? From the programming that she talked about. It starts with the training of the correctional officers, having that 2-week training off the floor so that when they hit the floor, their eyes aren't as wide open as they may have been in the past. Getting that confident trainee into the department or into the jail week number 3, working on the floor. It also happens by the mental health and well-being of the inmates. If you're working with a population of inmates that have a better mental health, they're not going to be happy with where they're at. But if they're a little more happy with where they're at, it's going to be easier for the correctional officers to work there, to work with them. And then the programming that she has set up for her correctional officers, that's leading to good mental health for those officers, so that when they leave, when they think there's greener pastures on the outside and they go to a different facility, they're realizing, you know what, Clay County was a pretty good place to work for, a pretty good place to work at, and they're coming back, they're reaching out to Carrie, they're reaching out to come back to the sheriff's office. That says a lot about her and her team and what they're doing over there. And the other thing that she passed on quickly was the Jason Hively visit. MCIT is really pushing that jail administrators reach out to him and get him to come into the jail. There's been 36 jails, he said, that have reached out to him. There's been 1 jail in the state that's reached out twice to him to have him come in, and that's Clay County. Not only did he come in and give us what Carrie said, doing very well, he promotes the Clay County Jail throughout the state. He tells other jail administrators, reach out to Carrie, talk to her about operations, and then come up and do a jail visit so you can see the facility as well and see what they're doing in Clay County. That says a tremendous amount about what's going on over at the jail. Good job.
Yes.
I'm going to jump in on that. I'm on the Public Safety Committee with AMC, and I have repeatedly heard other commissioners on the Public Safety Commission or committee from other jurisdictions talk about the Clay County Jail. The programs, how progressive we are here in Clay County. You hear 2 things that people say with absolute envy when they're in county government elsewhere, and that's our youth services, our juvenile facility, and our jail. You repeatedly hear praise about that. And, you know, not to take anything away from your command staff, Carrie, the people you work for, but you brought a lot on board since you've come, and we are grateful. I am very proud of the things you're doing in that facility, and thank you.
Thank you.
Very good, Gary. Thank you very much for your work.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question for, if I can go back to that little
Yeah.
device,
Yes.
because I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah.
So how does, for the public who might be watching and who might happen to know somebody who's unfortunate to be in that position, how do they know, or what's their process for learning how to reach them through that.
Yep, so what happens is when they're first booked in, they are given this device. They're set up with an account with Reliance. Reliance then allows them 5 free text messages to send out to their family members.
Okay.
And that free text messages says, kind of notifies them to go to either the website or they can call this number and find out how to set up the account,
Okay.
so.
So the account would be set up by family members and not by?
On the outside, yep,
outside, yeah.
on the outside. So we set up the inmate account on our side,
Okay.
and then the 5 free messages go out, and those messages, with those messages, either to friends or family, they can set up multiple accounts.
I think it's important also to note that if that person doesn't want to be notified, they have the option to not accept the reaching out. So if it's a case of maybe the correspondence is not wanted.
Right, and that does
the
happen.
individual does have the opportunity to reject that.
Yep.
Question on that. I suppose all of these text messages are retained and available,
Correct.
maybe with subpoena, I don't know, but in
That's
case
exactly
somebody wants to keep up their nefarious activities while inside, it's not a wise choice to try and do it over one of these devices.
It's not, but it does happen. So yes, we keep we monitor all that every night. Somebody will go through the text messages just to make sure that, we can get certain intel that somebody might be trying to bring something in through mail or, anything of that sort. So we're constantly monitoring that.
I just want to follow up too, and I also am really happy to hear about your position with your staffing. I think we've struggled with that, hearing about that on this board for a number of years now. And to see that you're almost up to where you need to be it's encouraging. And it also means that it saves us from, Sheriff, I know for quite a while your budget had to include an awful lot of transport, even though we had built this new facility to handle the number of inmates, for lack of a better term, that now we can house them here. And I think that's a job well done. All the things that you did, congratulations on that accomplishment.
Thank you.
And for our public watching, it's a big savings in the budget because, we didn't budget for the out-of-county boarding of prisoners. That was funds we had to find along with the transporting and the overtime and things of that. So, yes, it is very, very good that we are there at full staffed, and I was going to add some of what Chris hit on, which I'm glad you did, but also is that we wouldn't have been able to get there without your guys' support either. We had a couple referral processes that we're doing, and that does help. So having your support does help that as well. So we do thank you for that. Anything else? I'll finish it up. As you're aware, in 2022, we did give out a couple of awards. Deputy Dave Cochran received the Life Saving Award, and then he also received the Minnesota State Patrol Commendation Award for the same incident. And then we gave 2 Distinguished Service Awards. One was to Lieutenant Tweeten, the other to Lieutenant Josh Schroeder. And then Lieutenant Schroeder also received the 2022 Supervisor of the Year Award from the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, which is, that's a pretty big accomplishment as well. And then we also have Chief Deputy Chris Martin. We're very happy to have him here. He joined us in January of '23. He jumped in with both feet, and he's learning every aspect of the Sheriff's Office so far. So we welcome you and thank you for making the jump over.
Thanks, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And then, again, this is a high-level overview of what took place in 2022. There are many other duties, tasks, events that were completed and attended by all staff. Just way too many to mention. I know Carrie has a laundry list of things she could have went on with more things about that's going on over in the correctional facility. Gabe and everybody, we've just had a real busy 2022, but these were our highlights for you. And last, we have to thank our county commission, of course, our county administrator. Again, we wouldn't be able to do this without you guys and without your support, so we do thank you. And we already heard from Carrie. I kind of jumped around there a little bit. That's all we have.
Are we looking at bringing in other prisoners yet, or are we close to that, or?
We do have a couple here actually already. You want to elaborate?
Yeah, we've taken on a couple from, not sure if you guys are familiar with the news that's been happening in corrections in the state of Minnesota, but the DOC has cut down quite a few units in Ramsey County, Beltrami County, and I believe Morrison?
I believe so, yeah.
I believe Morrison County. So we have taken on some of their inmates as well. One, it helps that county as well, but it also obviously financially helps us as well too. We have been taking on more DOC inmates that where if they can't get to prison or they're waiting for a treatment bed, we'll hold them, house them for a while as well. So that number is going up slowly.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Just not to hog the mic here, but, I worked with several of you folks, including you, Sheriff, and sometimes it's hard not to look at things with a critical eye when you're an old retired guy and you did it for 40 years. So I'm looking at your department and your agent on how I'd like it to be, and you guys come up with things I didn't think of. You have done an excellent job, Sheriff, and the people you've got that you have working for you in key positions are top-notch. And the ones you've come in today, you're losing a good one, but we were both in for repairs at PT last week. We ran into each other, and I said it's like walking into a garage and they're trying to fix two broke-down Crown Victorias. But I just, to summarize it, I'm proud of your agency and your people. And I am proud of the services and what you're able to bring to the people of this county, including those that are incarcerated. The compassion and the opportunity to put in front of them a chance to get out and do better is what we shoot for. So thank you, and thank you to all your people.
Thank you. Again, thank you for the support. It's, I've said it several times, and I say it to whomever I can when I do talks in the public, that we wouldn't be able to do it without your guys' support, so we do appreciate it.
Steve, did you have any final words to offer us there? You're saving yourself? Well, Mark, thank you so much for this excellent report you guys gave, and well-prepared staff on the report. That was very good. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Did you want one of those yoga sessions over at the jail?
Now, our next thing is the request to approve the Clay County Proclamation and Resolution Policy. Steve, you're going to handle that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think anyone needs to see any yoga poses from me. This morning, we do have a proposed proclamation and policy resolution. As you guys are certainly well aware, from time to time as commissioners and as through administration, we receive requests from the public to acknowledge something going on in their life or in their community through proclamation or resolution. I think that from our board's standpoint, it's been a practice that the commission supports proclamations and resolutions that only directly have relationships to our departments, whether that's through services that are provided, policies, or budgets. This policy would help better clarify the framework when proclamation and resolutions would be used, and then also laying out when they wouldn't be used. And so if you just take a brief look, again, the first section of that deals with the proclamation. From a board standpoint, we often do proclamations on public awareness, Law Enforcement Week, Foster Care Week within public health, social services. We have addressed different things for art and culture through our social services and public health departments, and also special honors for whether it's recognition of services or longevity of our employees. When we look at resolutions, there are a variety of different things that are listed here, enacting states of emergency, joint powers agreements, official newspapers, and other different areas that potentially could utilize a resolution or proclamation. And we also have a second way where we have statements of influence, whether that's through AMC or through the federal policy on NACO, if we are being asked to support certain legislation. The policy also addresses what we wouldn't be covering. I think that, again, one of the great things about county government is we're a nonpartisan group, or you're a nonpartisan group, and you make decisions based on what's in the best interest of our citizens. And so, again, we would continue to focus on proclamations that have an impact on those things. Like we do now, if a request comes to you, you forward that to me. I then reach out to Mr. Melton, and we have that conversation and notify the citizen of whether or not that will be brought forward. And so, again, this policy isn't necessarily set up to stifle the ability for the community to reach out on different issues. They have access to you. They also have the opportunity to come before this commission during citizens to be heard, and that certainly wouldn't change. Anything that we have here really is a practice that we've already been following, and what the hope would be is that this policy would really formalize what is being done anyway, and have another piece of information that we can provide the public if they have any questions. With that, I'd yield for any questions.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
This conversation, this item has been through the PIC committee, so we'd have lots of dialogue on it and forward it unanimously to this board for action.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Question? Yeah, I like this, just going into the issues that we would not review, I guess. And I'm not sure if the first bullet point covers it or not, but sometimes you can have a request to maybe do something that would basically violate federal or state law. We certainly don't want to be taking those types of things up. And I don't know if the first bullet point there addresses that or not, but I think that still is something that that can, it should be considered, or be put in there, that, we don't want to be put in the jeopardy of being asked to do something that would violate either our federal or state law.
And I would say, Commissioner Campbell, you're very correct, and I do think that first line has it, or encompasses that in there. It's
Okay.
that way, just to make sure we're doing that, but all true, I would agree.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move we approve this policy.
We got a motion by Commissioner Edminger, second by Commissioner Kravinoff. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Most. Motion passes. Okay, request approval to update Clay County procurement and contract administration policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, as this board certainly is well aware, Minnesota State Statute 375.75 requires counties to provide a procurement and contract administration policy. Again, the main goals of this legislation and policy would be to assure that the lowest prices for goods and services are done through a competitive bid process, that we have uniform guidelines and procedures for all county departments, and ensure compliance with applicable laws pertaining to the purchase of goods and service for government entities. Over the last few weeks, the Auditor Treasurer, Stacy Delstra, Mr. Melton's office, Joe Olson, the Highway Engineer, Justin Sorum, have taken a look at the changes that have taken place from a legislative standpoint. Again, the standards set by the legislator provides the minimum standards. State of counties can add additional policies on top of that. The form before you is the document that has been adjusted. Just for the board's record, the main changes that have happened in this document is the threshold of the dollar amount for when we need to come before this board for approval is now at $175,000. It remained the same for individual items of for the bidding process, but for individuals, our department heads have to come before you if they spend $25,000 or more. Through the highway department, Justin has to come to you if he spends $175,000 or more. There's also a change in how often or how long the bidding process has to be advertised. Our policy currently states that it has to be advertised on 3 occasions in the paper, and then 10 days after the last announcement or last advertisement, the board can make a decision. State statute now only requires that it be advertised 3 times, and we no longer have to wait those 10 days, which has it's fairly important given the culture and the times that we're in. Joe has struggled multiple times on being able to bid out projects and then being able to act on them in a timely fashion. This board also addressed the credit card daily limits and monthly limits back in 2020, and this was now captured. It was captured in policy, but now is captured in the procurement portion of that. And also gift cards. A number of 2 years ago, I believe, the state of Minnesota said our EAC committee could no longer provide gift cards, and so that was adjusted. The state auditor's office also supposedly going to be putting out another specific information on gift cards. Currently, gift cards are allowed to be able to provided through some of the various grants that we have at Public Health and Social Services. So we may need to make an adjustment to this, but made the updates as of how the state auditor reads now. And so, again, we would be looking for your approval on this. Moving forward, we have this on a schedule where we're just going to bring it before the commission on an annual basis. In the event that there are no significant changes, we would move to run that through consent. If there are any changes like there were to the level today, we would bring that before the full commission again. That I yield for any questions.
Do you, when you talk about gift cards, I know the Veterans Administration gives out gift cards, but they obtain them from the Veterans Organization. Does that apply to that, or is that?
Yeah, currently there are guidelines on how it's acceptable, and so we're operating under an acceptable policy right now, and so we'll have to see what the state auditor's office comes with here, if there are any changes that we have to do moving forward.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a question, just a clarification that this is an opportunity for us to align with what state statute requires. Currently, we'd been more strict than what the requirement was, and it did actually come to the forefront when we were working on our new substance facility that we had a different requirement for approval. So I certainly feel like this aligns well. The transparency component is still very much a part of what the policy will be, and feel as though this board can support the move. So if there's no other questions, I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second that with just a clarification or a question, if I could. So when on our building projects that we've done, looking back to the correctional facility, the law enforcement center, the regional juvenile center, and most recently the resource recovery facility, and now the substance abuse facility. The committee that we worked on, and I think in most part it's been Commissioner Mojo and I have been given some authority to pre-approve. And all of this, does that have any implications to this? Are the numbers that we've set as the ceiling fall below?
It would fall below. And the most recent one, we did 50,000 on the law enforcement center correctional facility. We did 100,000 with the resource recovery facility, and that would fall under the 175,000.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Mocho and second by Commissioner Campbell to approve the policy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to the request approval to extended Moorhead Center Mall lease. And the Department of Motor Vehicles. With that, we'll take that one too.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. As this board is certainly well aware, during the COVID pandemic, we were forced to make some adjustments with our DMV. If you recall, our location on 15th Avenue had about 750 square foot lobby with 7 windows. It was fairly common to have anywhere between 22 and 30 people in there when we had 6 foot social distancing, and it allowed for 3. And so this board took action in October of 2020 to move the DMV on a temporary basis through a three-year lease at the Moorhead Center Mall. Through that lease, there was the possibility on a leaser, extension option. We just need to provide notification 100 days prior to the end of the three-year lease, which is November 30th. The terms of the future years were set in the original lease. There was an increase of roughly $1 per square foot. And so in year 4 and year 5, we would have a request of $114,400 for those 2 years. Again, not knowing what the plan was, we did not have the first month's lease or the first month of that new year, fourth year in the 2023 budget. So we would be proposing $19,066.67 come from our general reserve funds to cover that lease should the board move forward. And then the lease funding would be covered in future budgets through the annual budgeting process. With that, I'd yield for any questions.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, maybe give a little bit more, also some more background. And when we moved into that facility, we had to do some considerable amount of investing into the setup or fit up of our needs in that facility. And really from a long-term goal standpoint, our intentions was that we would expect to use those additional 2 years to fulfill or to make the investment more worthwhile from a time period. Having said that, and like Steve mentioned, 3 years ago, there was really no set plan in place for what was going to happen with that area, and there was a lot of uncertainty. In the recent months and days, things have become more evident that there probably is significant movement in moving forward with something new and exciting for that area. And one of the concerns, our concern, of course, is that with our lease ending when it is, there's no way that we could possibly relocate in that period of time to someplace else. And I think it would be the goal of this board, when we do move, we only want to move once, as opposed to trying to find something temporary and then move again. I think that would be a disaster for our citizens. We still have people right now that want to go to 15th Avenue North because they're, it just takes that long for the education. But with that, I've had some recent conversations with Mayor Carlson. Commissioner Gross and I met this morning with Derek LaPointe and Cal Hoff from, if I said her name right, from Roars Construction. And there are some exciting things potentially just around the corner. And I think it's important, and our building committee, by the way, really discussed this on February 15th, and the recommendation was to move forward with our asking for the extension of this lease. Having said that, and with our actions, I think it's important for the public to know that this isn't a long-term deal for Clay County at that site. And we need to be moving on finding what will be our permanent home for DMV. Someplace that hopefully that will be as good as this place has recently turned out to be. If you look at some of these sites, and I think of the Moorhead fantastic site that's on, and there was a lot of criticism early on in DMV, and those have all gone away with a lot of good things that have developed. But just with the time frame that we have, we now are a pilot program with the state with that secure printing of licenses. Any place that we have, we want to be able to meet that same criteria. I know I'm going on here a little bit, but it's important for the public to know that even though we're looking at, and this letter talks about extending our 2-year lease, I think we should be open to modifying that if the owners are in agreement where we could maybe do a 1-year lease with a second-year option. So in the event, if we can get out in 18 months, that would be better for us and better for that facility. And I think there's other tenants within that facility who are wondering what the county is going to be doing. And I think it's important for them to know that we recognize the project that's in place and the need for us to ultimately relocate so that that project can move forward. You know, so I think maybe, and then also, by the way, our building committee did suggest to this board, and I don't know if we've gotten any numbers yet, but we made the recommendation that we should look at Klein McCarthy as doing some sort of a feasibility deal for a new site. And I think, and that would require them working with Lori Johnson and some others, and just what our future needs would be and square footage and all that type of thing so that we can find a permanent location. So with that, unless there's other questions, well, I'll just wait. But I do think that maybe, we're exercising our option for, right now we have one option, that's a 2-year option. And if the board would be opening to modifying that to either, maybe negotiate, could we do a 1-on-1 as opposed to just a straight out 2-year one? We could do that. And that would be, in the event that we do find something and we could leave early, then we're also, and based on the discussions this morning, the Representative Rohr seemed open to that. So it's a topic for discussion here, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a great option. I also want to reiterate the fact that this board, one, is trying to be the best stewards of the investment for the location that we put in, and it really allowed business as normal as possible to continue during a pandemic. So the space was really perfect and continues to be a great fit. However, we do understand that there is a lot of movement happening with that site, and there's a lot of potential and a lot of fluid components to what the plan looks like. That fluidness there is the same as the fluid conversations that you're having at your facilities building, trying to figure out what that next step is. The reality is we don't have the time to make a permanent solution as though you're talking about, and I agree. I think whatever the next move for DMV needs to be the permanent move for DMV because of that public component. I really don't want people to be confused where to go for this business. So, however it's framed, if Brian thinks a 1-on-1 option makes the most sense, I certainly don't want to hinder the development and conversations that is happening at the Center Mall, but also we need to get the most out of that site as we can. And so when they say, nope, you're done, we need you to be out, we have a place to move into. And in that amount of time, we'll continue those conversations.
Yeah, those are excellent comments. And, in having conversations with Mayor Carlson, some others, there are a lot of opportunities and locations available for us to look at. And there's been some really cooperation, I think, from the part of the mayor on behalf of the city. They're very interested in that project, but at the same time, she's really been anxious to learn where our future sites would be, and she's even offered up some suggestions for future sites. So all those things are really, really positive. But I really think, if there's no, if you have more questions, but maybe this letter that's drafted, if we could, if we could give Brian a little bit of negotiating power here to contact, maybe this could be adjusted slightly to state that we would like to extend a 1 year with an additional year option that would give us the same rights that the 2-year one had. And I think if we want to do that, give that now, I think that would be a good option for us. And
I think it's important.
I think we'd get some cooperation on that on the part of the.
I think it's important. I mean, they may not be tearing down the place right now, but they're gonna be doing other tearing down and stuff, and getting to the place is what's gonna be very important, you know. I mean, we may be able to stay there for 2 years, but to get there, you know, that has to be taken into consideration too, so.
Anything, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Campbell, you're correct in that, I mean, anything is negotiable. I mean, as that contract got written up, it was a 1-2-year option. That's all that's in there currently. But I think it's just as easy and very plausible to negotiate 2 1-year ones as well. So, I mean, I think at this point, the option could be for the commission to approve that concept here today, and then we can work to get it written up, and then also talk with City of Moorhead and with Roars to make sure that's what they're agreeable with, and so I think that's something we could move forward with today. If we don't want to sign that specifically, what we have there, I think just going forward with the option that we could negotiate 2 1-year terms would be very doable.
Mr. Chair, I thank you for that, Attorney Melton. I guess I would move that we send a letter to the owners of the lease that our intention is to continue our lease, and currently that it's a 2-year, but if they would be open to a 1 year with a 1-year option, that the county would be very interested in that. And I think that would set that dialogue, and it would have to come back to this board, obviously, but I think for the sake of moving forward with this and in the time frame that we have to do it by, that would be my motion.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Campbell and second by Commissioner Ebinger to ask for a 1-year lease with an extension. Any further discussion?
Just want to note the funding source that was identified in the memo would be that would come from the general reserve funds, and then any remaining funding would be factored into the annual budgets for the respective years.
Yeah, and also, now that you bring that up, to the current year extension also talked about the annual amount of the lease, and anything that we would request, whether it be stays with the 2-year or a 1-and-1, that those annual rental numbers remain in what it was in the original contract.
Paul?
Yeah, I totally agree with the conversations going on, and that Mr. Melton will can go forward with the modifications. Looking at the current lease, it appears we have till June to get this done for any type of change. So I think looks like time would be adequate, and if it wouldn't, I guess we go back to this.
And thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Carmen. I think that's exactly right in that I think just authorizing that we could put a letter forward that just says that we are intending to extend for the amount of time that allows, and then get into the specifics of it, I think is perfectly good. That'll start the clock anyway, but if we didn't do it exactly today, we are within a good time frame here. We're ahead of time of getting things worked on, so, but I think it's important that we're talking about it.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? No, okay, motion passes.
Mr. Chair, if I could just follow up on Commissioner Campbell's comments. I did reach out to Scott Feddick from Clyde McCarthy this past week. I actually just received an email prior to coming up here. Mr. Feddick will have information on a pre-design and probably in 2 different location possibilities ready by the end of the day. And so if the board's if the building committee's wishes that we were to bring that forward, we could bring that forward next week.
Very good.
I would say, yeah, we want to at least get that going. And
Is he aware that the State Department may be working with us too, or?
We've had that discussion, yes, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Okay,
Thank you.
We'll move on to number 6, request approval to purchase CaseWorks electronic department management system for child support division. Rhonda, Sandy, gonna take
Yes.
care of that one?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you back. Good morning, Commissioners. Okay, Sandy and I are here this morning to request approval to purchase an electronic document management system for our child support division. As you may know from previous conversations with the board, we are working with Next Chapter Technology for our electronic document management system in all of our other divisions. So our financial division, all of our social service programs, we have an accounting addition. Sandy's unit has been working off of Application Extender, like some other departments in our county as well. When we implemented CaseWorks, Application Extender at that time was working pretty well for Sandy's unit, so we didn't jump on moving that over to CaseWorks. We're here today to look at doing that. Sandy's unit has received a demo from CaseWorks and is really liking the features that it offers in comparison to Application Extender. We have received a proposal from CaseWorks as to what that cost would be, and I'll go through that. Maybe I'll give Sandy an opportunity to just talk about some of the features that this system offers that our current one does not.
Well, currently with Application Extender, it holds our case file. And we've been very pleased with it, but just in talking with counties that already have CaseWorks and after the demo that we received, it's much more integrated. It will do things for us that would reduce keying errors, address errors, that type of thing. So staff was very excited about the opportunity to use a new system that would allow us to do our work more efficiently and faster. There's barcoding, so if we send a letter out through CaseWorks, when it comes back, you can scan it in, the barcode will put it in the correct place within the system versus having to look up the name to figure out the case number to, just all these steps that it would eliminate for us. So we're very excited about the opportunity to move into a system that will help us be more efficient in our work.
When you say it'd be more efficient and faster, are you talking about reducing staff then, or just?
Not adding staff.
Yeah, not adding.
Yeah, I think the efficiency, we did bring this topic to the Finance Committee last Monday to talk through the financing piece of it, because I do know that we're coming in February after the budget has been set for 2023. Our recommendation in terms of how to fund this, whether we're coming now or bringing it forward for the 2024 budget, I think the recommendation would be the same, so we felt it appropriate to come now. In addition, Next Chapter Technology is working with some other counties on implementing the child support. Well, actually, many of their divisions, for example, Meeker County is on Application Extender. Their whole agency is switching to CaseWorks. So we kind of rushed to get the demo and evaluate whether this makes sense, because we were going to see if we could launch somewhat in tandem, and that does create some efficiencies when we can work together and work with launching with other counties. We're going to be a bit behind them, but we did see a little bit of savings in launching. They did apply some discounts to us as a preferred county. As you know, our IT department works with many Minnesota counties. They host CaseWorks here in Clay County, so we feel we're in a good position to move forward with this particular piece. But we are definitely seeing efficiencies since launching. We first launched in 2011, and that first application was in our financial services division. And I think if you ask any one of our staff, I don't know that they would know how to function without having CaseWorks. The case flow, the whole management system of the work that we do has created tremendous efficiencies. We would not have been able to work remotely as successfully as we have without a system like this. So certainly has been a benefit in that way. I can move down a little bit to the cost impact. I've kind of separated it out into three areas in your information sheet. The first piece where I have year one, where it says 2023 implementation, there is a one-time cost which includes all of the licensing with the different pieces that we need in order to implement this solution in the Child Support Division. The fortunate thing with this is we do receive some federal financial participation specific to child support, and so that does allow us to earn some revenue or to recapture some revenue based on this expense. So what you'll see there bolded in black there and underlined, the $51,342 would be one-time costs that we would recommend we utilize fund balance to pay for. We currently, where it says year two under next chapter technology, we currently are already paying for some of the application extender and a product called Jet PCL to do our work. What we currently have budgeted, we would of course not budget in 2024, and we would use those funds to support the maintenance of CaseWorks going forward. So the next bolded and underlined cost would be the $6,126. And that would be a cost that would need to be added to the 2024 budget going forward. That would be the new cost. Then going down to the middle there, Clay County Technology Services. For hosting, Rory does build the social service budget for hosting CaseWorks and their staff time and what it costs to host this product on our server. And so what you'll see bolded there in black is $1,169. That would be a new item in the 2024 budget as well. Otherwise, we have the funds budgeted in 2023 to move forward with the hosting side of things. And then the remaining costs that unfortunately we were hoping to have met with application extender to solidify these costs before our meeting today, and we weren't able to do that. But we want to, of course, migrate our files that are in application extender over to CaseWorks. And we have some decision points that we have to make along the way about that in terms of closed files or open files and how far we go back, and all of that would depend on the cost. So Sandy and I would work with application extender on those decision points. But that would be an added cost to this as well, and our recommendation would be that we used fund balance to pay that one-time migration cost as well. So those are the costs. We're hopeful that we could move forward in 2023. However, if there was concern, we certainly can present it in the 2024 budgeting process. However, like I indicated, I think that we would recommend using the fund reserves for those one-time costs anyway versus building that into any levy request.
Questions? Or?
Yeah, I'll start off. I agree. This is a good investment. And I think, Sandy, I think your department is the only department in social service that does not use CaseWorks right now.
Correct.
And from what I understand, all of the other departments love it.
They love it.
And I think there is an awful lot of time savings that's involved with that. When you get into the guts of the operation and how it works, I think it's really a good investment. And regardless of whether we did it now or in 2024, I agree that anytime you do a significant one-time investment on this, it should not come out of 1 year's budget process. Instead, it should come out of reserves or your fund balance. So then it becomes down to what we're looking at for 2023 additional costs. If I'm not mistaken, it's about $2,338 plus the $6,126. Is that correct? Oh, no, excuse me, the 6,000, or the 9,000 378 and the 2,338 would be 2023 extra costs.
The extra, for 2024, do you mean?
No, I'm talking about for this year, for 2023, to implement it early instead of waiting till 2024. We have that hosting fee, right?
Yes.
You'll have the one-time cost too, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, no, the hosting fee is something that's ongoing.
Yep, the hosting fee, so if you're looking in year one under Clay County Technology Services, is that what you're looking?
yeah.
Okay, yep. That initial $7,000, so Rory's department for all counties, Clay County including other counties, when there's a new addition that they are implementing, he charges a one-time $7,000 new fee. And so he would be charging our department that as well. However, we already have $7,000 in our 2023 budget. So we would be using that $7,000 for this project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, when we talked about this in our finance committee discussions early on too, we actually thought about why not incorporating all of it into everything that goes in for the first year of operation into a capital instead of trying to maybe put your budget
Sure.
out of whack, you know, so I certainly think it's in our best interest to move forward with this now as opposed to waiting.
I take a motion? Is that a motion?
Sure.
Okay.
If there's no other comments.
Okay, we got a
I'd move.
motion to implement it? We got a second. Any further discussion?
If I could just make one quick comment, for the Finance Committee members, Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Mojo, the numbers you'll see are a little bit different from the Finance Committee. They're a little lower. We had some adjustments in terms of our licensing numbers, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So.
And one last question. So the current hardware that all of your employees use, laptops or whatever, is there additional scanning that'll go on with this now? Or are we going to need to have adjustments in hardware by your staff?
We're pretty well set with the hardware. Most of the staff, some of the staff have scanners, so I think I don't anticipate that we'll have much for hardware costs. If we do have a line item for some of those unique things that we could manage within our 2023 budget, but in working with Rory, our staff are pretty well set for technology needs.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve this funding request. All in favor?
Aye.
I-
Opposed? Very good. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we move on to request approval to fill vacated deputy appraiser position.
Good morning, Commissioners. At this time, I would like to look for an approval to hire a vacated deputy appraiser's position in our department. This is a budgeted position.
Make a motion to approve the request.
A second.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Mojo, a second by Commissioner Krabanoff to approve the request. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Motion approved. Okay, next time we got Corey to request approval to purchase a semi-tractor.
Good morning, and thank you.
Morning, Corey.
I was approached by Moorhead during this whole process of putting up the RRC, and they have two semi-tractors that they are no longer using. They offered them to us. They're both 2007 models. They both have roughly 300,000 miles on them. I've received all the maintenance reports on both the machines, and they have been maintained meticulously. They're offered them to us at a cost of $20,000. I would recommend that we purchase one of these as a backup for our semi-units we have now. Right now, we have two tractors in use. We're not hauling water at this point because we haven't got our third tractor yet. The third tractor we ordered will be here this week, but it's becoming apparent we're going to need 3 garbage trailers. So I would recommend we purchase this at the $20,000 cost. I did some comparables. A 2006 with 322,000 miles, they were asking $40,000 for, and a 2004 with 440,000 miles, they were asking $28,000. In addition, these already have a wet kit on them, so that saves us about $8,000. So I think it's a very good purchase for us. We ran it by the SWAC last week, and they were in agreement that this would be something we should do, so. With
This
that,
is such a good deal. Should we buy 2 of them?
I guess that's up to you.
Mr. Chair, you know, we did talk about this at SWAC, and I think SWAC did agree that, you know, and it's coming from an entity that did keep the maintenance up on these machines as well, so I certainly support that. And one of the things that we talked about doing, and I know Corey's going to be coming back a little bit later with, we're not quite ready yet with another purchase too, but one of the things that we suggested was that Commissioner Mojo and I together that serve on the SWAC work together with Corey and Lori Johnson and with Steve and to review where we're at now that that facility is up and running with the original investment and the original dollars that we have available, with the idea in mind. So there's another trailer that's coming up, and that we've had some discussion about a skid steer that would be really good for that area, that could be used by both this facility and with the new facility that we got going up out there. So, but if we can incorporate, if we have dollars still available through this project, I think we'd like to see the funds come from there first. So I think, Commissioner Mojo, I know you had a conflict with last week or something, but I think the plan is for us to meet with Corey to go over that and to come up with a recommendation.
Well, when I was saying that we purchased both of them, are any of these 2 tractors better than what we have, or?
No, they're 2007 models. We currently are running a 2014, a 2019, and
Okay,
we're getting a 2023.
very good, okay.
The only advantage is that these tractors are pre-def, so that there's not 5,000 sensors that go bad all the time. That's the major problem we're having right now, is the def sensors go down, and then you have a tractor sitting for a day. And with these, we can basically hook up and go, so they're
Very
ready.
good.
And they could be used to run our leachate
Yep,
to Pelican or to
They will get used,
Fargo or
yeah.
the shorter trips.
Yep.
Okay. And what is the council's wishes? Do we want to move ahead with this, or?
I'll make a motion that we, provide the funding for the solid waste department to purchase 2007 semi-tractor in the city of Moorhead.
Second the motion.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Krabnoff, second by Commissioner Mojo to approve the request. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, with that, we'll go into committee reports. That's where I left off here, I guess. Paul, you want to start us out?
I can.
All right.
So going back to on the 15th, last Wednesday, one of the first things I was involved with was through our Clay County Substance Abuse and Suicide Prevention Group. We had a webinar, well, a Zoom meeting, I should say, that was run through Clay Public Health. We had it was a presentation with about 50 other professionals changing the narrative of mental health and suicide. And it was given by mostly Rory Beal and Karen Nixdorsky, and they did a really good job. it was a little over an hour presentation. I personally took a lot away from it, and certainly I think it was very well received by all the professionals that were part of this. Later that day, the building committee did meet. Most was primarily about current projects that were done, certainly the DMV discussion that we had, and we're moving forward on that. Kevin may have some other points he wants to make, but that's what I took from that. And then later that afternoon, I had my monthly board meeting with the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County. And on that, it's mainly, our budgets are in place for the year, and it's now the planning season. So just a few things they talked about coming up were the, getting set for the Pangea event that they do every year. And other events. There's one, and I'm missing it. Doesn't matter. They're planning and moving forward. On the 16th, went to the MetroCog meeting. Road projects that were already in place were mostly, they were talking about road improvements were on North Dakota side. To the Minnesota side, as they looked at their strategies for funding, three items were mentioned for the Minnesota side. Of course, we have the money, for taking out the North Broadway Bridge. Again, their priorities will be what it would be then with funding in place for the replacement of that. The second part that Moorhead has high interest in, obviously, and we also do too, is the grade separation on 11th Street. And then last in their projections is a pedestrian bridge down at the Blue Stem area that still is still on their priority list. Moorhead definitely wants to move with their money being spent toward the grade separation before getting into the pedestrian bridge. So that message was being so noted, so that priority stays higher than the other. But of course, things can change if other grant funds come in or whatever toward that pedestrian bridge. As far as, I'll go back to North Broadway Bridge. I think on that replacement, it was a good discussion. Couple things on, I think we kind of, we'll be working with, if it would happen, we would be working with Minnesota DOT, and my understanding is if it would be replaced, it would be a bridge at the elevation that's still within the floodplain. And on the Fargo side, they're working toward the costs of having a bridge that would be higher than that. That would certainly take a lot more land, but have to buy out some properties to do so. And I guess I just want to report, and this was coming from one council person, that there are commission person, that there's still a lot of numbers to be seen on that side, and I don't think there's clear consensus on that side yet, what that might be, or if there would even be one.
If I can chime in a little bit on that, Commissioner Kravinoff, I'm glad this is through MetroCog having this discussion.
Yeah. Yep.
So obviously, our Highway Tracking Committee has been working on this as well, and we've kind of said all along that the funding for this project on the Minnesota side and the way that works, it comes through our bridge bonding process, and it would really be doubtful that MnDOT would probably go for anything more than what you talked about in terms of what the current recommendation from our side anyway would be, to keep it at that lower level. The other concerning point about if they want to expand that to something bigger, you're talking about a really redesign of County Road 1 from the bridge to the north as well. And that would create some additional costs to the county, because if you look at the way that works now, that road would, instead of going where its direction is, which is straight down to where the current bridge site is, it would kind of alter and go more to the southwest, which to me would mean that almost all the way up to our intersection, we would have to redo that roadway. And now you're getting into some additional costs on our side of the river, and I'm not so sure that that would be covered under bridge bonding. You know, so I just to, as you have those dialogues at Metrocog, I think it's important to note some of those other things that if you get into a larger project, it could be more costly to the Minnesota side.
So noted. Thank you for that. The last part also is on permits. We aren't even, I don't think there's anything real clear yet whether it can be even built under the 37-foot, whatever that would be now that the river elevation would be higher, you know, in the diversion plan, and if it would even be allowed. I think they're still waiting for a final determination on that.
And that discussion's been going on at our highway tracking too, and the meetings that we've had that have involved DOT and then both the DOT from Minnesota and North Dakota, they do believe that there's, you know, the possibility of having something permitted that way, or obviously.
Okay.
So I mean, they think it's and the city of Fargo engineers as well believe that they could design something that would be permittable.
Very good. Let's see. So then the last meeting I had was on Friday, on the 17th. I was with, for the first time, the Early Childhood Initiative group, a very robust and very energized group, and they're too at a point right now that they're in their planning stages of upcoming events. One big one for them coming up on May 6th will be the Kid Fest. And then another event that the planning committee is working on is an event they've had in the past called the Longest Table, which will be in mid-September. It was brought up about the, there was a small discussion toward the end about the Romkey project and the potential child care with Jasmine in that area, and I think that was mainly just no direction being set at this point, but we may hear more on that through this group. That's my report.
Jenny?
Thank you, Commissioner Gross. So glad you're back. Last week, I attended the PIC committee meeting after the board. We did discuss all of those items earlier in this agenda. Thank you for this board's support of those items. Following that, we had a long finance committee meeting where we talked about some contract negotiations that are going through. We did direct our county attorney and county administrator to work through those components. And Wednesday, attended the DWI specialty court conversations that are being brought together from several judges within the 7th District. Really, this board has continued to see the success with specialty courts and thinking expanding it to offer a Clay County DWI court would be beneficial. Currently, Otter Tail County and Becker County have a similar court, and having over 600 DWIs issued within Clay County last year, we feel like there really is a base that could support a specialty court of up to 25 to 30 participants. There's a lot of components that need to work through. Commissioner Ebinger and I were happy to really reflect this board's opinion on specialty courts, and hopeful that a planning team can work through not only with our county attorney's office and sheriff's office, but all of the different partners countywide that would allow something like that to be lifted. So more to come for that. I had a long conversation with a Becker County commissioner. They're in the planning stages of a new correctional facility. And as noted several times earlier during the sheriff's report, we are proud of our correctional facility and the programs and outcomes that are currently happening there. And Beltrami would like to emulate a component of that. So they're early in the planning stages, but wanted to hear how we framed a lot of the planning. And just wanted to remind this board that next Monday, the Lakeland Mental Health Center annual board meeting will be happening at 9:30 in Fergus Falls. I believe there's also a Zoom option. That is a great opportunity to see really the workings of the organization. As noted earlier, with our correctional facility, they're great partners with our river project. And you can hear the hundreds of thousands of dollars in grant funding that they're currently receiving to provide vital mental health services within our community. So I encourage you to attend that if possible. And also tomorrow, Mayor Carlson and I, along with Shannon Full, we're going to have some community roundtable discussions on hearing opportunities and concerns that our business communities experience in hopes of bolstering the conversations that we're having at the legislative conferences and when we're talking with our legislators. However, because of weather and other factors, we've decided we're going to postpone that conversation until later. And so if you had seen things on the Moorhead business site, that is what that is. It's just an opportunity for us to invite partners to the table to just have conversations similar to what we did with the roundtable discussion with Senator Kupek, similar to those discussions that we had with Deed Commissioner Grove last year. As I've said often, the more we can hear from community partners, the better we can advocate for those needs. So more to come on that. But that concludes my reports.
Kevin?
Thank you. On February 15th, we had a building improvement committee meeting, and the items discussed there, the shops that the highway shops that we're dealing with, the last one, this Yulin shop will be done this summer. The start date will be in April. That one was delayed. The cold storage is up. It still needs to have the concrete flooring done. That will also be done in the spring. The power plant generator project that was with ARPA funds will also be done in the spring of this year. And the government center HVAC project through ARPA, that is, Joe said that's wrapping up, so that's just about done. And we did get an update on funds, our capital fund. At the time Joe gave that presentation, there's about $12,800 still remaining in that. And in the ARPA funds that was designated for the project, they're just about complete, but there's a little concrete that we're still waiting on, but there's about $1,700 left in that. We did have considerable discussion about the DMV situation, which we acted on today. Obviously, knowing that we need to move into a permanent plan. And we also talked about the potential for where we go to if we're going to try to partner back up with the state, depending on what site is chosen, if they'd be interested in moving back in with us. And we did some discussion regarding space needs within the Family Service Center. Topic really came up about, once the substance abuse facility is done and detox moves out, there seems to be interest amongst different departments to have access to that square footage. And I think what we basically suggested was that Joe should maybe reach out to each of those departments and have them come up with a a plan and a presentation to bring and as to how they would use that facility, and that would come before that building committee. And then we did have a little discussion on the procurement policy update that we had today. On the Monday before that, which we reported on at last Tuesday's meeting, we had a finance committee meeting that did talk about contracts regarding our commitments and guardianship contracts within the legal area. We're looking at reviewing those contracts, and then we had a follow-up meeting on that on the 15th. And we've kind of given some direction for Steve maybe to deal with potential changes to those contracts based on historic data. More will come from Steve on that in the future, but there was a considerable discussion there. Then on Thursday morning, we had our Clay County Solid Waste Advisory Committee meeting. We talked about the purchase of the vehicle from the city, which we acted on today. There is a need for another trailer, which we didn't quite have the information available yet, so that'll be coming. When Corey said see you next week, I think that's his intention there to come back, but we wanted to make sure we have a plan how we're going to pay for it. We did give an update to the SWAC committee about now that we're getting more detailed into the substance center that's going to be sharing that property. We gave them an update on what that's going to look like and where it's going to sit on that property. And there were some questions on that. And then Corey gave updates regarding the landfill. And there is an issue that's come up where starting in March, in terms of recycling, that all of our residents will no longer be able to put glass in the blue bin containers. Because Minn Kota, who they bring that to, is having a difficult time with that. So there are sites within the city and within some of our rural areas where there will be drop-off sites for glass. We had Shannon give us an update on that, and I think there will be some more educational material that'll come out informing the citizens on that. So, but that's something new that'll be starting in March, that glass will no longer go in those blue bins.
Excuse me, Kevin, will there be, it'll take time to get that message out, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Will there be some separation that we'll still do in transition, or?
Yeah, so, in terms of the city collects all of that, and it goes into their blue, and everything that goes in those blue bins right now goes to Minn Kota. And obviously, just like it is when we talked about a learning curve for when people know that, there's no doubt going to be some glass that's going to be put into those on a short-term basis. And they'll still go there, but they're going to just have to separate and sort those out. And I think there's a part of it too, there becomes a lot of contaminants or product within there. For example, there are certain things that we learned that places can't take cardboard or newspaper or anything that's been commingled with that type of thing because it contaminates, or where they can't use it for remanufacturing for certain items. Our eggplant carton place out here, that's an example of that, where they can't take certain things based on contaminants that could end up in those blue bins. So there's a process in place, and I think we asked Shannon to make sure that there's information messaging that goes out on that. And we talked a little bit more about SCORE funding and the increased need for SCORE funding. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. It's always good to be last. Most of what I have has been covered, but I attended the PIC meeting last week on the 14th, which has been addressed by Commissioner Mojo. On On Wednesday, the 15th, I also attended the DWI court meeting. Just a couple observations on that. They've got a very good program in Otter Tail, and they have a program in Becker. And looking at our DWI numbers, I think we've got room for a specialized court to address these needs. It's going to be a little different, but listening to the people involved, particularly Janelle Cheney and the judges involved in this, there's an awareness there, and I think we got the talent on board to where this can meet a real need in our system. So I hope that that moves along and we can progress with at least designing an idea on grant funding and some of the things we need to get started. We looked at Otter Tail's numbers and some of what they're doing as well during the meeting. Thursday was a strange day. The CAP-LP Council on Aging and the Clay County Drug Abuse and Suicide Coalition both canceled meetings that day. So I'll be looking forward to picking that up next month. Friday, we had a virtual orientation for the Association of Minnesota Counties Board of Directors. I'm an alternate on that. Really a good meeting. Julie Ring, the executive director, oversaw it. Mary Jo McGuire, our president, brought some information on board as well. But facts, missions, goals, our governance structure, AMC organizational structure, and the role of the board within the AMC. And we'll be having a board meeting Thursday because of the readjustment to make our legislative conference virtual. We'll be having a virtual board of directors meeting at 1 o'clock on Thursday, which I'll be attending. And that concludes my report.
All right, I've been gone for the last 2 weeks to give my report. Brought my wife along to give the report what we've been doing the last 2 weeks. So, yeah. Okay, we'll just skip that one then. Yes.
I wanted to add one thing about our SWAC meeting that I neglected to mention. Corey and others did a really good job in reviewing all of the assets within solid waste, and one of the things that they found out is there were several items that were still being listed as insurable with MCIT that we no longer have, and there were some things that were never listed on MCIT, such as our BOMAG, which is like between $750,000 and $1 million item that was never listed on our insurance policy. I'm thankful that Corey caught it, but and being all so. Having said that, I think it's probably important for us to really countywide maybe relook at all of our assets and how we list them with MCIT. And obviously, there's sometimes where something is forgotten. You might sell something or trade something in or eliminate something, and you might buy something just to be on the safe side. But I just want to, I certainly want to congratulate Corey for finding that out, because had something happened with that piece of equipment, we could have been without coverage. And
All right, I do want to thank Dave for taking over for me for a couple of weeks, and sorry to be gone, but I lost a 5.5-pound tumor out of my body, so that was quite an operation. About twice as big as they thought it was going to be, I guess. So recovering from that. So glad to be back. Steve, we'll take your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, I participated in the PIC meeting that has been addressed. Also, the building committee on the 15th that has been addressed. And just note, I know that we've cited it on our webpage. We talk about it. The testing site has moved locations. It's no longer located on 15th Avenue North. And while the state operates that and not the county, I think it's important to note that they are at 2615 2nd Avenue North. now on the west end of that building. On the 15th, that afternoon or evening, I talked with Scott Fettig, again, in regards to a pre-design on a potential DMV. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we'll hopefully have some more information on that later today. We have a MCC JPA meeting this coming Thursday, and so we had a prep meeting. We had an property acquisition updates. We talked about some property farm leases for 2023, and then had a review of Pfeiffer's 2023 lease MCC JPA summary. On the 17th, I participated in the MACA legislative update by Matt and his staff. We had discussed House File 3, the Earned Sick and Safe legislation. That did pass the House last Thursday. It's impactful for our departments, both in juvenile detox, the correctional facility. It impacts any part-time employee or variable hour employee would be eligible for sick time. They receive 1 hour of sick for every 30 hours of work. In talking with James O'Donnell, they have between 45,000 and 50,000 hours of variable hours, and so that would be something that, should that move through the Senate, will be something we'll have to have impact in the next budget. House File 1377, AMC has been working hard to increase the amount of CPA, county program aid that counties receive. Their House File 1377 would adjust the mechanism for how CPA is received, both for counties and for the LPA. And so the initial way that it's read now would read that Clay County would get about a 57% increase if this were to move forward. It was brought forward through the House, through the tax chair and 15 other co-authors. In the Senate, there is a companion bill, 1828, and Senator Kupek is a co-author of that. And so certainly this board is aware that county program aid is the best tax property relief that can be offered. And so we're hopeful that that will move forward and stay that way. We also talked about legalization of cannabis. That is gaining traction. They were able to get some amendments into there that requires a local registration application fee, which also allows inspections and pulling that license if that business is not in compliance. We also talked about the Paid Family Leave and Medical Act. AMC continues to work to get clarification on what intermittent leave means. Right now it's written very broadly. Clarifications also for businesses that already offer PTO, sick, vacation, and what that usage would look like for those potential 12 to 24 weeks. And then they're meeting with unions this week who strongly support the Paid Family Leave and Medical Act. As was mentioned earlier, the AMC Legislative Conference was canceled, or not canceled, but moved to a virtual option. We are, in talking with Mr. Melton, we did have that posted down in the cities. We are going to be moving that to the Government Center if the commissioners would wish to participate. AMC is supposed to be providing a link today to give us a different outline of what that would be. And so we will post that both on our boards here and also reach out to our media groups making that change. With that, I would conclude my report. Oh, one last thing, just in reference to Commissioner Campbell's comment in regards to the BOMEG. We do meet with MCIT on an annual basis, generally once they come before this board. Secondly, they come before a management group. And so annually, we send out documents to have our departments go back and verify that everything is on their list. Now, having said that, this isn't the first time that we've had some different issues, and so currently we're working with Joe Olson to set up a risk management piece, which will then, he and Rory Schmitz from IT will then collaborate with our department heads to take a closer look on an annual basis. And that concludes my report.
I thank you for that, Steve. And I think one of the things that really can maybe serve as a checklist to some of those is all of our items that we purchase that end up on our internal service fund. I think, I think that's another option to be able to use as a checklist, or to, if it's certainly if it's on our internal service fund list, it should be something that should be on our policy for coverage. Thank you.
Mr. Melton, you got anything for us?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you back.
Jackie, any further instructions for us? Okay, we're adjourned.